Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Pabau podcast. I'm your host, Alex, and in this podcast, we'll cover everything that you need to kickstart and grow your business. Along the way, you'll get to meet some amazing people, from clients to Pabau staff members, as well as industry experts and consultants. We'll cover a wide range of topics from lead generation, overall marketing strategies, as well as day-to-day operations and best practices as well. Make sure to like and subscribe for more awesome content. Today, very fitting for the very first episode of the Pabau podcast, we have the Pabau CEO and owner, William Brandham. Thank you for coming on and taking the time. All right, so let's kickstart off with the podcast. How are you? It's been a while since I've last seen you.
I'm very good. I'm very good. Very
How you
optimistic at the moment.
That's good.
Yeah, kind of as you know, for probably the best part of 2-3 years, I think it's been that we first started the idea of kind of rebuilding Pabau, and I guess we'll get to the why and why we did. But it's certainly been it's been 2 years of kind of locked away from in a dark room. It kind of reminds me of the old Pabau 1 days, like the very first kind of when we first started Pabau. It was very much 20-hour days, non-stop, locked away, no social life, etc. And it was kind of strange doing that for Pabau 2, because it's almost like, when we started Pabau 2, there's now all of these responsibilities. So when I first started building Pabau 1, let's be honest, I was young. There was no responsibilities, no clients. And it was very much it takes me back to the old days with Pabau 2, because the only way to kind of, in my opinion, build a product at speed is by locking yourself away. And that's certainly what we've done with Pabau 2.
All right, since we're on the topic of Pabau 2, the main question that I had, first of all, that I'm sure everybody would be interested in is, why did we build Pabau 2?
You're jumping right in there.
Yeah.
We've never actually been asked that. So I think kind of, why did we build Pabau 2? I think kind of if we look back, 3 years ago, we started out building Pabau on a technology called PHP. And I think it's almost the state of the industry is we're relatively quite new to the market. Even though we've been going for 10 years, a lot of the software players out there, they are kind of around 15, 20, 25 years. And what happens is when you're kind of an aged software company, you kind of stick with the same technology. So your product is built on the technology that you chose 20 years ago. And obviously everyone knows in any type of industry, if you're building something based on theory 20 years ago, it's going to be a lot different to kind of the technology that you would choose today. So we kind of took a big gamble in a way 3 years ago. I mean, a lot of clients were happy with Pabau, and it's kind of like they kind of look at us, and like you've rightfully asked is, why are you sitting and rebuilding? But for us, it's not a short term. Like we want long term gains for our clients. We don't just kind of want to do short term gains. And I think, like I said, it was a big risk, it was a big cost, but we're now kind of finally over that curve now. I think building out a new product is always going to be difficult. And as I said, Pabau 1 was working absolutely fine. But we wanted to kind of be a step ahead of the curve. I think a lot of our competition out there are still stuck in the older technology. And as the years go by, it's going to be hard to innovate and progress on older technology like it would be with the technology that we're now using.
The next logical question to why do we build Pabau 2 is, what is the current state of Pabau 2 today?
Very, very good. I think when we set out on this journey kind of 3 years ago, we always knew it was going to be tough. Not only are we building a new product, but we're building a new company in a way. Like Pabau 2 is not just an update or an upgrade. It's an entirely new system, entirely new technology. And I think kind of the missight that we had at the start is we didn't realize that how much we would need to do in terms of operations in order to accommodate the product growth. So today, Pabau 2 is doing very, very well. We have more clients for the first time ever using Pabau 2 than we have using Pabau 1, as you know. And I think kind of the main difference with Pabau 2 is, as I mentioned before, is the long-term sustainability that we're able to achieve with it. And what I mean by that is I personally feel the way that, I'm going to get a bit technical here, but the way that you kind of assess how well a software company operates is by the number of deployments they're able to do, the frequency of deployments. So what I mean by deployments is it's basically how quickly can you update it. If you're with a software company, clinic software, salon software, whatever, if they're doing kind of quarterly releases or releases every 3 months, and we had this same issue with Pabau 1, it essentially means that you're doing all of this work and then you have a big upgrade or a big update, and then you have more risk of things essentially going wrong. Facebook deploy 750 times a year, so they have 750 updates a year, and that suggests to me, so that's two updates a day. And what that basically translates to in simple terms is the more updates you're doing, the better your product is able to run. Because we're essentially follow a pathway, what we call release ready. So we ourselves do 1 or 2 updates a day. And that means that you're confident in the product. You can go and make a change in Pabau 2 or any product, and providing you've got automation tests, strict testing, code reviews, all of this kind of technical stuff, providing you're able to set that up and do that well, the more frequently you deploy, the less issues you're going to have in the long run, because your releases are smaller, and that reduces the risks. So that's something that we've nailed down with Pabau 2. And I know it's kind of not the exciting side, it's more, what's sitting under the hood, but what's sitting under the hood is what drives the car. So it's kind of like, that's something that we're really, really proud of. As I mentioned, the scale of Pabau 2, so we're now in 45 countries, on Pabau 2. Also, in terms of the team size, so on Pabau 1, we had 5 developers working on the product at one time, as you probably remember. And now we have probably 150. So this scale is tremendous. And with that, we've also increased our operations around support. We were only able to accommodate 8 hours, I think 9 till 5, was it? Or
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
And we had the odd person working a night shift. Now we're 21 hours a day, global. So as I mentioned, I don't think it's just necessarily a product update. It's an entirely new business.
Yeah. That's an interesting point about operation standpoint as well, because now we're able to cater to more clients from more countries as well. So we're able to support them not just with chats, but also with meetings, also with knowledge base, with the academy stuff. So making sure that they have enough material to be able to use the system as much as possible, which is kind of like the point.
Yeah. And I think with Pabau 2, and we had this grasp on Pabau 1 as well, where I think we kind of differentiate from what's out there in the market is Pabau 1 and 2 can accommodate small and large businesses. So we have the largest chains of clinics in the UK. All of the big names are using Pabau. But also we're able to accommodate the smaller clinics. And I think why that's important is because we never have clients leave us with the comments of outgrowing the system. We've never had it. No one ever says, I'm going to another software because I've outgrown this product. And I think that's quite important to be able to accommodate small clinics, so they've got that room for growth. And if ever they, get into the stage where they're a large or a chain of clinics, then Pabau can certainly accommodate that as well.
One thing that you mentioned also is that there's currently more clients that are using Pabau 2 that are using Pabau 1. So of course, there's quite a lot of clinics that are using both systems, particularly in Pabau 1. I know that there's a process for transferring over into the newer version. So, but I've also heard a couple of comments or feedback, and I wanted to get your opinion on that as well. What would you say to clients that would say that are on Pabau 1 and they would transfer on Pabau 2 when it's ready, as they would say?
Yeah, so I'd say kind of, a lot of it comes down to when clients have moved across. So, we've been in a rollout now of Pabau 2 for probably just under a year, maybe 6 straight months, I would say, in the process of moving from Pabau 1 to Pabau 2. Obviously, if you're an early adopter of Pabau 2, then it's going to be a lot more painful to kind of, with someone that's moved to Pabau 2 in month 1 or month 2. But the big difference now is what we're seeing is that our new clients that haven't used Pabau 1, that are jumping straight onto Pabau 2, the feedback's overwhelmingly positive. And I think it comes down to kind of fear in a way. But I would say it's more, I would shift the focus to more fear of missing out, because Pabau 2 can do so much more than what Pabau 1 offers. And I think some people may get stuck in their ways a bit. It's like getting a new phone. If you have an iPhone 10 and you jump to an iPhone 15 Pro Max, then even if the 15 Pro Max is better, you're still very, very used to the features on the 10. And I think that's the case with Pabau 1. We've discontinued a lot of, not a lot of, but a number of features in Pabau 1. In Pabau 2 from Pabau 1. But there's reasons behind it. So for example, we discontinued birthday mailer. And a lot of clients were kind of moving across to Pabau 2 and saying, hey, how do I now wish my clients a happy birthday? I had this feature, birthday mailer, and I can no longer wish happy birthday, which is our very first feature, by the way. And everything is within reason. Like the reason why we've discontinued birthday mailer is because, as we'll speak out later, we now have automation, and automation can do way more than just wishing a client happy birthday. So there's reasons why we've discontinued certain things. But I'd say kind of anyone that's kind of in the mindset of I will move when it's ready, which is one of the common things that we say. I'll move when it's ready. we were kind of ready 6 months ago with in terms of feature parity. Yes, we're still continuing to get great feedback from our community. We have a lot of doctors, nurses, aestheticians that are constantly giving us feedback, and I think that's kind of important because from day one with Pabau, it was essentially me sitting in a clinic for a year, watching all of the processes, and you're getting kind of one piece of feedback from one user. And now on a daily basis, as you know, we're getting hundreds of ideas from our community, and that's what's helped driving the growth. But the number one thing I would say is, Pabau 2 is certainly ready. Has been for a few months now. Yes, at the beginning, it was more difficult to migrate. We didn't have the content that your team has been kind of putting together. But now there's so much resource, so much content. It's in a much better place from a product standpoint as well, that there's almost no reason to not switch across. Things aren't going to necessarily change in a big way a year from now. What we have now is what it's going to be continuously throughout the years.
Yeah, cool. One thing that I wanted to ask you also, and we want to talk about later on, would be about all of the amazing features that Pabau 2 offers. But just getting back to this topic, because it's still an active thing, like switching over from Pabau 1 to Pabau 2. What would be the deadline to switching over to Pabau 2?
It's a good question. It's a good question. So the deadline for switching across to Pabau 2 will be end of year. So basically January 1st. There may be some exceptions for enterprise clinics. So what I mean by enterprise clinics is people that have had bespoke features built. There's a difficulty there around getting them migrated across to Pabau 2. For clients that don't know what bespoke features, if you've never heard the word bespoke feature, you probably don't have bespoke features, but there's a small number of clinics, probably 5 to 10, that have had these custom features built. And they may be on Pabau 1 for a little bit longer, unless they're willing to kind of disregard these features and just jump to Pabau 2, which is an option because Pabau 2 again offers so much more. But the deadline's end of year in order for moving across to Pabau 2.
Yeah. And one thing that I would say on that note is that for the people that are actively switching over from Pabau 1 to Pabau 2 or are about to be switched in the upcoming period, is that there's so much things that we've done from an operational standpoint that it's very easy to switch over, but it makes it more of a sense to actually switch over in the upcoming period. I'm also talking about, for example, the tremendous amount of work that the product marketing team has done from a content standpoint, from the Pabau Academy to get everybody ready, to educate them on the features that they use. Also, quite a lot of things have been done on the knowledge base, which we'll talk about and touch on later on as well.
Yeah, what I've been noticing from the data is when we kind of started the switches kind of 6 or 7 months ago, we had the option of we're more lenient on people moving back in a way, right? What we're seeing now is a lot less people wanting to move back. And especially if you make it past the 2-week mark, you almost look at Pabau 1 and think, I don't want to touch that anymore. That's what I've been kind of noticing from the data. But I honestly think that Pabau 2, as I mentioned at the start, it's an entirely new product. So all of our clients can remember when they've moved from software A or software B to Pabau. You're never going to like it in the first 2 to 3 weeks. It's a new system. It takes a while to kind of get used to. And I would say kind of Pabau 1 moving to Pabau 2, it's a bit confusing in a way because you think that it's going to be familiar, and in some ways it is familiar, but it is an entirely new product. But we have the resources now, we have the training that we're offering in order for clients to kind of educate themselves on Pabau 2. But I think that process of migrating people across as well, we've mentioned that end of year is going to be the kind of the cutoff day, but I think kind of the way that we've structured the migrations is we're working from subscription tiers. So all of the solos, I believe, have been moved across, and then we're going to be moving to mediums, teams, groups, and then eventually enterprises. And we've been kind of working our way up from that. But generally, overall, the feedback now is a lot better than it was 6 months ago, which is understandable.
Yeah, and we've also definitely refined the process of switching over people. So not just in terms of the content that we offer with the knowledge base and the academy, but also from an operational standpoint, we have a lot of people that are actively working from the background, making sure that everything is switched over as it should. We also have switch meetings as well. So during the switch or before the switch, we have a meeting with our customer care team, which helps quite a lot with that transition over from Pabau 1 to Pabau 2. One thing that I wanted to ask you as well is, except for maybe clients that are saying that Pabau may not be ready for the switch, what is maybe another reason for people not wanting to switch over to Pabau 2?
I think kind of I would say kind of it's more down to kind of, I think you have to make your own decision in a way, is what I would say. We can push and push and push Pabau too. And we can do as many podcasts as we want, as many videos as we want. But it kind of has to come down to the decision of the clinic. We wouldn't be building or rebuilding Pabau or building Pabau too if we didn't think that it was going to be beneficial for clinics, right? So the first thing I would say is educate yourself on Pabau too, the reasons why we're doing it. Try not to listen to community forums. Make your own decision. I think kind of like I was saying to you earlier is, if you've got broadband internet, which everyone has, you have 100% uptime for the past 2 years. You're never going to go onto a Facebook group or ring your broadband provider and say, hey guys, I just want to thank you. I've had 100% uptime.
Yeah.
It's an expectancy. You expect it to be amazing. You expect it to be up. And I think kind of like the difficulty now is we have way more people using Pabau 2 than Pabau 1. So what I would say is if someone's on a forum complaining, we take all feedback on board. A lot of the complaints or negative feedbacks we use and we thrive on, but it is now a minority. So what I would say is more people using Pabau 2. As I mentioned, they're not going to go on a forum and say, hey, it's amazing. The only time people go on a forum is usually to complain, which is good for us because all feedback's good feedback. So I would say you kind of need to make up your own mind. As I mentioned, we have way more people now on Pabau 2 than we do Pabau 1. And then over the next 2 months, it's going to be a very small proportion of people that are now on Pabau 1. And the truth is, as I mentioned at the start, is one thing that I didn't mention is I spoke about kind of we have 5 developers working on Pabau 1. In terms of like overall team scaling, we now have the big office here in Macedonia. When we started this project, we were 30 employees. We're now 200 plus across 3 countries. It's a much bigger scale. And why that's important is it means that we're able to support clients a lot better from a success standpoint, support standpoint, educational standpoint, sales standpoint, and product standpoint. So we have all of these reasons now. It's not just a product switch. It's something that's much better supported. And eventually, we will be discontinuing Pabau 1 at the end of the year.
Yeah, cool. One thing that you also mentioned, and this is going back to the feedback aspect, what is the general feedback from new clients that are coming into Pabau 2, keeping in mind that they have never worked with or have never seen, let's say, Pabau 1?
Yeah. It depends on the type of client. So in terms of new clients, it's overwhelmingly positive because they're coming from a software to us or they're coming from nothing to us. So that's always going to be positive. With Pabau 1 clients, you have these kind of loyal, diehard Pabau 1 fans in a way. So it's more difficult in terms of moving from Pabau 1 to Pabau 2 because you're so used to a certain type of workflow. But we've invested heavily into, and we'll kind of get onto it later in the podcast, we've invested heavily into kind of the efficiency side of Pabau 2. So in terms of speed on Pabau 2, it's way, way faster than Pabau 1. And I don't want to get too technical, but the way that kind of the technology that we're using before is every click on transition you're making, we're calling the server. We're kind of making a request to our servers. The way that the new technology works is it loads on the first load. So it takes a little bit longer to initially load up, maybe 3 seconds. But once it's loaded, everything, as you know, is rapid. You transitions between the pages instantly. And we only make the requests when you're performing kind of an update action or a create action. So it's overwhelmingly quicker than Pabau 1.
Yeah, interesting. Except for like the speed side of things, what are the rest of, let's say, the biggest drivers for Pabau 2?
I would say more so from a feature aspect. So right now so as I mentioned, we hit feature parity around 6 months ago. Where we're up to, so you mentioned a kind of like the state of Pabau 2. The way that I would kind of describe the state of any company is, as I mentioned, a number of deployments, but also product health. You're always going to, on any system out there, if you go on Facebook now or Instagram now or Gmail now, and you load up the developer console in Google Chrome, you're going to see the number of errors these websites had, and it's very, very common. So the way that you kind of measure these things is through product health. Like, what percentage of your product are you happy to have issues with? And I know that sounds a bit crazy. Like, why would you ever be happy to have issues? But all products in every industry always have issues. When we started out Pabau 2, or around 3 or 4 months ago, we were measuring a number of front-end issues. So a front-end issue is when essentially you hit an error and it causes the crash screen to pop up. Hey, you've had an error. What's your name? What did you do? what's your email? And essentially you fill in the crash form, as you know, and that will kind of feed back to us. We were starting 3 months ago, we were at 1,142 errors. Today we sit at 39. So some of you today probably haven't even seen that screen because it's very, very, it's not so frequent that this comes up as it once was. So we've managed to get those way, way down. And now we're kind of, in terms of speed and performance issues, particularly for larger clinics, if you have kind of 3 million patients sitting our software, it's always going to be a little slower. We've worked out ways with the newer technology to speed that up as well. So yeah, I think overall the product health now is in a much better place than it once would. And the thing that I'm most optimistic about is it's only going to get better. Like we've kind of ridden that wave now. We always knew, like when I sat down with Kane, I think 2 years ago, we sat in a bar in London, in Mayfair, and I was explaining to him Pabau 2, and he turned around and says, okay, how many more clients are we going to be able to service? Because, you know, the goal is always with Pabau is to make as many clinics globally paperless as possible. And I turned around and said to him, I think it's going to be rough. I think for the first 6 to 8 months, it's going to be very, very difficult. And we were kind of right in that respect because now we've ridden that wave. And I think kind of when you have a healthy product, when your product health is healthy, overall, everyone's happier. And then you're allowed to transition and do newer things. So we've had a feature freeze now for 3 or 4 months where we essentially don't build any new features. Although we possibly can, because like I said, we have all of these automation tests now. It's a lot less risky than it was in Pabau 1. But we have this feature freeze, and now we've got the product health into a very, very good place. And we're able to start transitioning to some of the newer ideas that either ourselves or the community have had.
Very interesting. Very interesting. One thing that I would also say from the standpoint of the product is that it also is, I can see, significantly improved in terms of the experience that the clients have with the clinic. So, for example, if they go to the online bookings, they would be easier to check out and to book their treatment or to buy the package and things like that.
That was always the goal, and especially in kind of Pabau 2, we want to make it kind of feel like you don't need a university degree in order to run it. Because let's be honest, like people expect fluidity these days. If you're using Instagram, it's easy. You're swiping, you're clicking. It's very, very easy to use. Pabau 1 requires a little bit of training in order to get onboarded. With Pabau 2, we're trying to eliminate that by making it feel fluid.
When it comes to, for example, the biggest drivers of Pabau 2, definitely I think not just from the speed side of things, but also the usability that Pabau 2 offers for clinics, and also the fact that they can grow so much with Pabau, like you said in the very beginning. And I want to touch on that as well because we have so many different features that are related to Pabau 2, like automations, payment processing, online bookings, and things like that. But I want to talk about, first of all, partnerships. So can you tell me more about that?
Sure. So kind of my role in kind of partnerships is more on the development side of things, which kind of I get into, but I'll almost throw the question back at you from kind of the partnerships from an operational standpoint and kind of how it's helping our clients at the moment.
Yeah. So in terms of from an operational standpoint for partnerships, we're looking into and building that network of partners, which are basically other types of businesses, like, for example, marketing agencies. And actually, for the second episode of the Pabau podcast, we'll have the owner of one of the marketing agencies in the UK. In general, basically, with the partnerships, we're trying to get feedback about advanced types of features that we can actually develop later on, or for example, tips and tricks that we can actually utilize in terms of development of features, and also to recommend, for example, in content like the academy, knowledge base, and things like that. We've definitely had a lot of partners, a lot of feedback from them, and from that we're basically taking that information and try to build content around that, as well as ideas for improvement on features, or ideas, for example, for additional.
Yeah, because we're working with some of the largest training academies in the UK, largest agencies in the UK. I think kind of the side that kind of I've been pushing towards, which I'm really excited about, is app developers. So if you imagine when you have an Android, right, or Android or an iPhone, when you kind of get your iPhone on day one, you have the core features of the iPhone. And then you essentially have this kind of app developer network, in a way, of people enhancing and building apps for the phone. So we are just in the process now, probably around 3 or 4 weeks out, of launching Pabau Marketplace. And what Pabau Marketplace is it basically allows third-party developers to essentially build apps into Pabau. And why that's super exciting for me is one, I couldn't believe the demand for it before we've even announced it or launched it. Just in passing, I'll be out with someone, developer by trade, and we're having a drink, and I'll be like, hey, you should build an app for Pabau. And the more people that essentially build apps into the Pabau Marketplace, the more it enhances the product. So already, without announcing it, we've got 6 development agencies building apps into Pabau. So like one of the ideas, WhatsApp integration. So that's commonly requested by clients. We have one dev agency that's essentially building that so that you can basically allow bookings through WhatsApp in an automated way. So someone requests on WhatsApp, hey, have you got an availability? They use AI, and then they essentially suggest availability for an appointment, which I think is amazing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very
And then
cool, yeah.
another one, self-checking. So I was requested this in the early days. So obviously we have the Pabau app where essentially you have the journey. You click on an appointment, you check them in, you fill in the details. We were getting requests for something that sits on the podium. So you essentially have an iPad on a stand. Patient walks in, enters their date of birth. It says, hey, is this you? Yes. And then it checks you in. So it pings all of the rooms to let the doctors or the nurses or the aestheticians know that the patient's arrived. And then they would go off and complete the journey as normal. What else have we got? A communication center. We have one agency building that where essentially you can see a list of all of your outbound, so email, text messages, letters, all of the outbound that has been sent in one single place, as well as the status delivery. Because particularly what we've noticed in Pabau 2, and Pabau 1 is you can get a lot of bounce back from emails, and that's not necessarily a fault of Pabau. Whether or not it hits in their spam box, we have no control over that. It's the email provider. But the most common one we see is non-formatted mobile numbers. So that's where a client goes online and they miss a digit off their phone number. It's very, very hard from a technical standpoint to prevent that. So this communication center is going to allow you to kind of see how your clinic's performing at a level of data entry in a way. And there's just, without even promoting it, we already have 6 apps on the way. And I think the moment we put out a newsletter or the moment we kind of make it public, we're going to get lots more apps built into the marketplace. That's something that I'm personally really, really excited about.
That's very cool. That's very cool because I think that all the things that you mentioned from a usability and also from convenience from the clinic standpoint is going to be very important for them, not also in terms of retention of clients, but also getting new clients as well.
Definitely.
On the note of the apps, actually, I just was wondering, why don't we build the apps ourselves?
So I think kind of our main goal now and kind of has been over the past 6 months is pure stability. People just want something that works. And right now we're in a very, very good place with Pabau 2. And it's not to say that we can't, because as I mentioned, it's much easier for us in Pabau 2 to build new features. I think kind of what the App Store allows people to do is, we have a roadmap 5 years long. So we have all these ideas, constantly. One of the main things that I get from clients is, they will suggest an idea and they say, this can really benefit you and your clients. And to sometimes measure that up, it's very, very difficult. So we kind of build the things that are highly requested in a way, and we build that into the core of Pabau. I think what the marketplaces are going to allow app developers to do is build more kind of niche products in a way. So it's no longer going to be, hey, you should build this, and we just say no. We have this roadmap, we can't do it, or loads of people need to vote on it. What they're essentially able to do now is if they don't want to go with an app developer, they can use our APIs and actually build their own apps. And we have a lot of our more kind of advanced clinics that do have in-house developers. So now with our APIs, we've exposed everything essentially, and they can essentially go out and build their own features in Pabau. And I guess the main reason why we wouldn't build it ourselves is, we already have these features and ideas that we're kind of building out in Pabau, but we're focusing primarily on stability, growth, and then we'll start progressing our own roadmap. This is almost like a cheat code in a way. This allows people to go on and start building out their own features.
They sound very cool. I think that they're gonna get used a lot. In terms of core features that we've been building, one of the things that I'm very excited about, and I actually did a talk. I had a presentation at the CCR conference back in London last year about like automations generally, why automations are very important from the clinic standpoint. And actually, automations as a feature is one of the things that I'm very interested about, and I can see that quite a lot of clinics are using it. And I was actually wondering, and I wanted to ask you about automations and how do automations actually help clients in
Yeah,
Pabau 2?
yeah. So I always knew automations would be a big feature in Pabau 2 because essentially it kind of you can look at it in two aspects. You can look at a beginner level and an advanced level. So what I mean by that is if we take kind of a beginner level. So on Pabau 1, we had a feature recalls. And what that essentially does is it basically looks at all, so let's say Botox appointments. It will look at all appointments 90 days ago and say, hey, this person had a Botox appointment. Send them an email and get them recalled for the clinic. So that's things on the basic level. And you can essentially build out automations. We don't have a recall feature in Pabau 2. Reason being, again, is they can use automations to build that kind of basic level of automations. The difficulty with that is essentially it doesn't look at future appointments. So let's say that someone had a Botox appointment 90 days ago, and then they've booked already a Botox appointment. It doesn't look very professional to send them an email saying, hey, click this link, you should get booked in. So with kind of automations in Pabau 2, you can set up almost these more advanced automations. You can say, okay, look at appointments 90 days ago. Do they have a future appointment of the booking Botox? No. Okay, then send them an email, and it's a little bit more personalized. And then you also have more control over the content that gets sent out. So you can set up these links, one-click login. So when someone wants to book an appointment, like I was saying at the start, although we're building a product that's easy to use for our clinics, the clinics almost need to change up their content to make it easier to use for their clients as well. And we do all we can on Pabau Connect to do that. But you can arrange your content so that clients can do one-click login. So for example, if you are wanting someone to book Botox, you want to be sending them an online booking link, which logs them in, selects Botox. Maybe if you're a smaller clinic, if you're a solo clinic, maybe select the employee so that when they get that recall email, all they're having to do is date, time, boom, done. So there's no need for kind of clicking on each step because we know they're booking Botox. And that's what I'd recommend to all clients that are using automation is whatever you're sending out, make it as kind of tailored to the client as possible. That's where automation wins over these kind of more basic features. And we were talking earlier about kind of the number of automation ideas you had. What was it?
Yeah, like 600 or something like
600,
that.
yeah.
Basically, like to create templated automations that clients can basically just like in 5 clicks they would be able to run that automation. On the note of templates and automations, we're in the works. We're trying to get it as simple as possible because, like you mentioned, one of the things that about automations is that you can create as much automations as you want to get creative with it. So you can set up the audience, you can set up the email or the SMS template, and it basically can run like clockwork.
Just on that note, I work with one close client in the US. This guy has 200 automations. He's tailored it. It's a hair transplant clinic. They obviously with hair transplant there's a lot of pre and post care. You know, you have the booking, you get sent a deposit link to pay the deposit. X days before the appointment, you get sent the full invoice. After you have the hair transplant, a day later, you get sent an email describing how to wash the hair. 3 days later, you get upsold Propecia and Minoxidil for the hair. And then at I think 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 12 months, the client gets an email for them to upload a photo, and that photo gets uploaded to the patient's profile. So it's incredibly advanced, and I'm sure the audience will have loads of ideas around the type of services they have. Cool sculpting, for example, if someone has a package of cool sculpting, you've used 5 out of 6 sessions, automatic emails saying, hey, you still have 1 session left. This expires here. You need to use it now. There's so many different opportunities for automation.
That is excellent, actually, and I think that getting back to the topic of general like automations and how you can use them, it basically is it can be tailored towards the clinic of what type of services that they offer, but also towards the client as well. So in marketing terms, if you laser target the type of email or the SMS that you send out to the client, the more effective is going to be.
Absolutely.
That's why we would also, for example, recommend things like personalizing the email with adding adding, for example, the first name of the
Yeah,
client.
yeah.
One thing that we talked about as well on the note of automation is that you can get as creative as you want with them. But at the end of the day, probably they want to start with something simple and then go into the advanced automations. So in your opinion, what are the most used automations that clients can use in Pabau?
Yeah, so I'd say the main one is kind of like, so as we mentioned, you can make them as basic or advanced as you want. I would say set out a plan where you're first building the basic automation. So to give an example, a really simple one, new clients. Look up all new clients that got created yesterday, send them an email, welcome them into the clinic. And then you can also almost push off certain services. So whether or not you want to upsell a service or a product, I mean, this gets a little bit more advanced, but my personal favorite is welcome new clients to the clinic and let them know that you do online bookings. Why do we let them know we do online bookings? Is what we've seen from that. So all of our decisions now are data driven at Pabau. Particularly with Pabau 2, the best example would be comparing Pabau 1 online bookings to Pabau 2 online bookings. We've seen in the data, so regardless of what we all think, it doesn't necessarily matter what Pabau thinks, and in some ways what the clinics think. It matters kind of how easy it is for the patient to book online. Are they spending more? And is the bounce rate? So the bounce rate being, are they making it to the end of the checkout experience? And we're seeing from the data that Pabau 2 is significantly better than what we're seeing in Pabau 1. And we'll kind of touch on that when we move on to the online bookings. But I would say kind of, pushing your clients to book online. You know, I know, esthetician, doctors, nurses, they're great at selling. You know, they can go ahead and upsell a package easy. But if you can do that for online bookings, then you've already got a win before the patients even come in the door.
Yeah. And one more thing that is also important about online booking specifically is that we would be able to also capture the ones that are out of hours. So to capture 24/7 the ability for the client to book whenever they want for the appointment. And also at that point to be able to upsell them on, for example, a package or a gift voucher or things like that. Specifically when it comes to automation, I think that also the things that are very useful to get started with would be related to financials. So for example, let's say the client has an outstanding balance or they have raised an invoice for them for a specific treatment, but they haven't paid it in full. So we could set up automations to basically remind them to complete the payment.
Definitely.
And this kind of goes into payment processing a bit, which I want to talk about as well. But we could also, for example, send them the invoice. They can see the invoice, and then with the Pay Now button, they would be able to complete the payment directly for that outstanding balance. And there's basically an infinite amount of automation that you can actually create within Pabau, which is actually fantastic. And on the note of automation templates, we'll be looking into creating them so that it would be also easy for the clinics that are just starting with automations to be able to set up those basic automations and get the ball rolling with not just in terms of client retention, but also the financial aspect and also getting those new clients through the door, like you mentioned with the new client automation. One thing that I also touched about as well there is that we've done quite a lot of work with payment processing in Pabau. Yeah. And I want to talk to you about that as well, about all the different types of payments that clients can do directly within Pabau and all of the different opportunities that it actually opens for them to be able to grow their business using Pabau.
Sure. And payment, like, so when we talk about kind of the leading features in Pabau 2, I would say kind of payments is number one. Because before we launched Pabau 2, everyone was using their own kind of card terminals. So particularly, more so in the US, it's an expectancy almost that the clinic software that you take comes with a terminal, or you could order a terminal. It's not as common in the UK, but we feel that that's the way things are moving. Like, people expect not only to be able to pay online, but also pay in clinic with a terminal. And there's so many advantages to using a Pabau terminal. Time saving, for example, if you're using a third-party terminal that it isn't inbuilt into Pabau, you're having to essentially run reports and reconcile. I had a call with a client probably 2 months ago, and they were kind of saying, hey, I'm using Pabau 2, same issue on Pabau 1, but I'm using Pabau 2. How do I reconcile my accounts? I've got this payment from WorldPay they were using. This payment from WorldPay, I'm trying to marry it up to my PDQ machine and all of this stuff. And it was almost taking her an hour a day to reconcile, or their accountant accountants are doing it. Obviously, if you're using a Pabau 2 terminal, there's no manual entry at all. You click on Pabau, you take the payment, it pings the amount to the card screen. You're not manually entering it in. And then when you take that payment, whether that be through card or card not present, your accounts are reconciled automatically because you've taken that payment through our card machine. You're not using a third party. So that's kind of one of the advantages. I think the other advantages around card terminals is card on file. So for example, if I make a payment online for online bookings, if I make a payment through the card terminal, you're able to save the card details. And that's almost an expectation nowadays. I mean, here you have Corpa, in the UK we have Deliveroo, Uber, all of these apps. If you had to get your card out every time to book a taxi, type in the number, the expiry date, the CVC, confirm it on the app, you just wouldn't do it. You'll hail a cab down, right? So now the expectancy is to be able to save your card details, and that's kind of where we're going with aesthetic treatments. If I want to book a facial, I want to book it like that. If it's taken too long, then I'm going to go to another clinic. And you mentioned, like with online bookings, enabling online bookings allows people to book out of hours. Why not sell the treatment up front? Why not take the full payment? And then you're not fiddling around in clinic. One of the big drivers with Pabau 2, as always, is efficiency. So all of these features around payment process and everything is about efficiency. It was different in the Pabau 1 days. When I would sit in the clinics, I'm essentially watching clicks. If they're taking the payment, how many clicks does it take to perform action A? If they're entering a treatment note, how many clicks is it taken to enter the treatment note? And I think payment's one way of increasing efficiency throughout the clinic, for sure, for the patient and the clinic.
Yeah. So efficiency in terms of like how they run their day-to-day operations, but also in terms of user experience. So if I'm a client, for example, if I book a session, let's say from the package that I've bought, I want to go at the very last step. If it said, for example, you have to pay this much amount, for it to say you already have a card on file, all it takes is just like one click, decide, okay, I want to use this card, and then just click
exactly.
and pay.
And I don't think we kind of touched on it all that much, but I think kind of I talk about the main goals for Pabau 2. There's so many different goals, and hopefully from this podcast, clients can understand kind of why we've kind of gone down this pathway. Not that we couldn't have done it with Pabau 1, but we almost wanted to kind of, set out something new. And I think kind of we're certainly on that pathway now of seeing the true benefits of Pabau 2, especially today than we were 6 months ago. It's all about driving growth for clinics. We can have the best features in the world, but I honestly think that clinic software built in the right way can drive revenue, as well as patient care, etc., but also drive revenue. If we're looking at the online booking system, for example, you're going through that journey of booking an appointment. It's a bit like delivering. You've got Domino's Pizza here in Macedonia. It's a bit like ordering a pizza. You go in with the intention of saying, I'm going to spend 10 euros on a pizza. You get to the checkout screen, it pops up and says, hey, do you want a cookie? Well, hell yeah, I want a cookie. You order a cookie, an extra €3. You might want some chicken wings. Yeah, I want some chicken wings. And it's similar with aesthetic-based treatments. If you're able to kind of predict what clients might want by, for example, someone booking a hydrofacial and us being able to link a product to the hydrofacial, or a better example being package upsells. So if someone's going online and they're booking an individual service, hydrofacial, Pabau will actually try to upsell the package, and we're seeing really, really good results from that. I think there's so many advantages to payment terminals or payments
and also
in general.
The rest of the payment processing types. I remember that we did the card terminals academy course, but also a separate one which is entirely related to all the different ways of payment processing within Pabau. And I think there are about like 12 to 13 ways of different types of ways that you can actually take the payments using Pabau directly. Like, for example, let's say packages to be sold, like you mentioned, on the online bookings, or for example, the terminal from the point of sale, or a card on file, or things like that. So all of that is in the goal of driving revenue towards the business, but also making it as efficient as possible for both the client and for the clinic as well.
Exactly.
And that's one of the things that we've also, not in terms of features, but also in terms of resources that we've built from an operational standpoint within Pabau, is as I mentioned, the academy, as well as the knowledge base, but we also have a dedicated team, which is the revenue growth consultants in Pabau, which basically offer free consultations to existing clients on Pabau to enable them to be able to use those features as much as possible with the goal of driving as much revenue for the business.
So we have the money team, as we call them, and then also the success team, is it?
Yeah.
Because you were talking earlier about the tactics.
Yeah.
So I know when me and Alex, we were speaking probably a year ago, wasn't it?
Yeah.
We sat down and we were essentially come up with hundreds of different ideas, small changes that you can make in Pabau to kind of drive either better patient care, revenue, etc. So tell me a bit more about that.
Yeah, so all of that is different tactics, which are, let's say, towards a specific feature or sub-feature, but the goal of it is to not only improve the overall user experience, but also to improve revenue and also to improve how they use, or the clinic, how they actually use Pabau on a daily basis. So the first thing is actually to take a look at all of the, let's say, 10 different features that should be core features, which is basically the foundation of the house. If, let's say, we take a look at the account, like for example, making sure that the staff members are set, all of their pictures are set, the permissions are set, services that they can do are actually set. Then we get into, for example, the calendar, how to create shifts, how to repeat those shifts, how to book appointments, getting to the client card a bit, then a bit about, for example, automations, medical forms, services, packages, and things like that.
So it's split into categories, right? So if they're already doing well in, say, patient care, they're saying, hey, I've got this locked down. They could say, I want to improve on marketing, and you have all of these different tactics to use the software for marketing.
So let's say, for example, that they've set already the staff section, they already have the shifts, they already have the medical form services, but they are not using packages as effectively as they should be. So that we get into the packages, because we've seen an increase in cash flow for the clinics that actually use packages, because not only in terms of cash flow, but also in terms of how much the client actually comes back for their treatments. Because of course, if they book, let's say, or if they pay for 5 sessions up front, they want to use those 5 sessions. So every time they come in, the likelihood of them having a longer lasting relationship, and of course more profitable with the clinic, increases as time goes on. So that's one of the most important things as well.
Amazing.
And of course, as part of that core piece of different features that are a part of the Pabau account, another thing is online bookings, which I want to talk to you about as well. So why and how much do you think that the online bookings is helpful for Pabau clinics?
So I think it's kind of like around the data again, because we have all of these different factions around online bookings. So as you've already mentioned, the majority of bookings come out of business hours. So if clients essentially, phone bookings and they close at 8 p.m, they're missing out on all of those late night bookings, and especially the window shoppers. So, I'm a type of guy that works till probably 4, 5 at night. I might get an impulse buy where I want to book a facial at 2 a.m. So I can't just ring any clinic. If they don't offer online bookings, they're not essentially getting my business. I would never pick up a phone and ring a clinic. I'm the type of guy I only use online. There's so many people in this generation now that are only wanting to book online. And then I'd say also mobile. So something that we do very well on Pabau 2 in comparison to Pabau 1 is mobile's increasing 45. There was a research in 2023 in Spain. Mobile's increasing 45.6% year on year, mobile usage. So it's crazy amount of people that barely use laptops. They're using tablets or mobile devices to do things such as book restaurants, make aesthetic treatment appointments. So I think kind of you need to be online in today's age. If you're not online, it's a huge loss in terms of, I think kind of this misconception, I want to be able to pick up the phone because I'm able to upsell or sell more, but you're essentially missing out way more business by not offering online bookings than being able to sell over the phone.
Yeah. And on the note of like having a general online presence, it also is limiting towards the clinic because they're not able to get as many bookings or as many clients as they potentially should be. So a good example of that is the statistics on the fact that a lot of bookings are taken or can be accepted out of hours. So that doesn't necessarily mean that clients are booking from 9 to 5. They could be booking, like you said, for example, at 2 a.m. in the morning. And another interesting thing about that is that quite a lot of bookings are also done on Facebook and Instagram directly. So I've seen quite a lot of cases with clients with they include their online bookings link, for example, from Pabau, they would include it in their, let's say, bio of their Instagram page to basically direct the clients directly to book the appointment with them or to buy a package, for example. I've also seen cases where, for example, they would use Instagram ads, let's say, to promote a specific service, then drive them to the online bookings link where it's listed already for that particular service.
Definitely. I had a case a year and a half ago. One of the largest chains in the country, in the UK. They had a call center, 50. I'm not going to mention the name, you know. They had a call center, 50 people. And we did that rollout. And their main goal was, they called it self-serve. So allowing clients to book online, but also self-serve their accounts. I sat there for a week, and every hour the CEO was coming in with a smile on his face, talking about the new online bookings, because they weren't offering online bookings before. I then did a checkup probably a year later, and guess what? No call center. So what does that have to say? Gone from 50 people working in the call center to offer online bookings. The data speaks for itself. If you're not offering online bookings, you need to be online these days.
Yeah. And also on that note, not just for example, in terms of social media presence, clients might want to also learn more about the business online. So the way that they would do it is, for example, either through social media, but also a good example is the website as well.
Yeah.
So a best practice is, of course, to include the online bookings on the website, but also to inform the clients as much as possible about all of the treatments that they offer, about their mission, about their vision, and things like that.
Exactly.
And for example, on the website, if we talk about that as well, is a good place to be able to also include, for example, individual links towards packages, let's say, or towards gift vouchers, or to even include reviews, for example, to build social proof. So that's a good way to build overall good presence online so that we would be able to get as many clients as possible.
Everything comes down to churn, right? So so what churn is when they start that booking process and they make it to the final screen, how many clients are dropping off during that process? And you have loads of ideas, I guess, to reduce that churn, so the audience can reach out to yourself and your team. But things like showing reviews, so showing reviews against a service or an employee statistically increases the likelihood that that client is going to book. Having service descriptions statistically increases the chance of that client booking with the clinics. There's all these different ideas and tactics that you can use to help reduce that churn, reduce that number of people that are dropping off during that booking process.
Yeah. And I think also from an operational standpoint within Pabau, a good job is what the actual customer care team do, as well as the revenue growth consultants, basically to find ways for the clinic to be able to use as much of the system as possible. Of course, to set up the foundation first, and then to build on top of that. One thing that I kind of touched on, but I want to talk about more a bit as well, is the marketing side of things. So a part of marketing, we also talked about a bit of automations, also talked about the gift vouchers a bit and packages. But overall, I think the marketing feature or the functionality with all the different sub features within it is quite a powerful one that I think clinics would benefit from if they use more of. So I want to talk to you about that as well, and how do the marketing tools actually help businesses grow?
Sure. So I think kind of the first thing is the newsletter system in Pabau 2 is significantly better than what we have in Pabau 1. You have a lot more data around kind of the newsletter that was sent out, the audience, the number of bounce rate, and you also have the ability to schedule emails as well. Many templates. As you've seen, there's probably 50 plus templates that you can choose from in Pabau 2. And there's no longer that kind of need to necessarily integrate with a third party, such as MailChimp or SendGrid or anything like that. I mean, if you wanted extremely advanced features, then you may want to integrate with MailChimp. But we saw people integrating with MailChimp on Pabau 1 just because, speaking quite honestly, the newsletter templates weren't all that very good, and they weren't highly bespoke as you can in Pabau 2. I think from a newsletter standpoint, it's very, very powerful. We've already discussed the automation, reviews we have in Pabau 2, gift vouchers, discount codes. There's so much you can do in terms of marketing.
I think that also in terms of marketing features, another feature that clients could benefit more of in terms of retention of clients and building an overall longer lasting relationship with them would be the loyalty side of things. So building, for example, loyalty campaigns and referral types of campaigns or programs. That way we would be able to not only build a network with, let's say, the referral side of things, but also continuously reward the clients that keep coming back.
Yeah, that's a big one, especially so more in kind of spa and beauty related treatments. Like I've seen some clinics have amazing loyalty schemes, and it really, really does help drive growth.
Yeah. So, for example, a good example of that is, let's say, if they buy or have 9 treatments, they would get the 10th one for free. Or let's say if they have 4 treatments, they would get the 5th one for free. So by that, we basically set the expectations for the clients, but also have enough time to build that relationship with them to be as long lasting as possible. Yeah. Because of course the stats say that keeping a client that is already your client is much cheaper and faster to do than to get new clients in.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right. I think that those were all the features that I want to talk about today. On the note of like marketing and lead generation, we actually have a second episode with an owner of a marketing agency. And on the note of the third episode, we have one of the revenue growth consultants, a part of Pabau, that will talk about a bit more specific ways about how to drive growth and revenue for the business. Do you have any message, for example, for existing clients or maybe potential clients that want to switch over from another system to Pabau?
Yeah, sure. So I think kind of it's that I'd say just take a demo. People have seen from hopefully at least we've answered the question on why we've built out Pabau 2. For new clients, Pabau 2 is just Pabau, so they don't necessarily know the difference. But we've certainly set out the foundations now with Pabau to kind of have real growth with our clients. And as I mentioned at the start, the more people that get onboarded to Pabau, the better it is for everyone in a way. And what I mean by that is we invest all of our money back into the software. We're probably one of the only software companies that literally reinvest everything, and we have done since the start, to be honest. And we're a bootstrapped company. We've never taken any investment, and I think why that's important is when you take investment, what is the primary goal? It's for the investors to get their money back. So you see the vision and the drive of the product in the way go down the wrong path. We look to stay bootstrapped, and we look to continuously reinvest into our clients. So I think just give it a go, take a demo, and hopefully you like what you see.
All right. Thank you so much for taking the time and for this excellent episode, for the very first one for Pabau Podcast. Thank you so much for watching us. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.